Hi everyone, I'm the plant propagator and welcome to my channel. Today it's a beautiful mid-March day here in Southwest Florida. It is 82 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 28 degrees Celsius. We've got some clouds coming through today, which is nice because it's actually a little warm. We need the rain here pretty bad. My orchids are doing well. Again, they like the sunny days, the high humidity, and today is one of those days. We're supposed to have a cold front come through here when it's supposed to get, I think, highs in the mid-70s instead of the mid-80s. Anyway, what I want to do today is share with you a story of some blooms and what happens at least to my orchid blooms. So this is an orchid that I've shared with you previously, and I've actually shared with you pretty recently. So this is Autumn's Grand Delight, and this is a hybrid that was made by Autumn's Orchids, and it's one of my favorite. It might actually be my favorite right now. I use it in a lot of my crosses. I love the flowers. I love the fragrance. I love the vigor. I put it into a monster pot here, a forklift pot, because it was just growing so rapidly. The other thing that I really like about this plant is that it blooms multiple times a year. So many of my orchids only bloom once a year, certain time of the year, the same month or within a month or two, either way of that, every year. This blooms twice a year, maybe more. It's an intermittent bloomer, and I really like that, just because I get flowers more than once a year. It's just wonderful, and again, for other reasons, a big, colorful bloom. I just really like this plant. And I like this plant so much that I use it in a lot of my crosses. So a lot of the orchids that I'm generating, a lot of the hybrids that I'm generating, contain Autumn's Grand Delight because it has so many of the features that I really like. And what I did with this is kind of peak bloom of this plant right now, but what I did was something bad. So the blooms are beautiful. There were 5 nice blooms on this plant, but what I did over here is I did a pollination. And what happens when you do a pollination of orchids, if it's a successful cross, the bloom, the petals, and the sepals, they'll fade. And right now it's just at the very early point of that. So this flower, I did have 5, and now I'm going down to 4. I'm pretty sure I'm going to bring this into my monthly local orchid meeting. I don't think it's going to make it to the show, which is in 2 weeks, but I'll bring it into one meeting as well. I think in 2 weeks, most of the blooms are going to be past their peak. But what I wanted to show you is how fast the blooms fade on these plants after you pollinate it. And this is a natural process. So with this bloom right here, I pollinated this about a week ago, and it faded pretty quickly. This is another orchid that I shared with you previously, and this is actually Oprah Winfrey. And Oprah had 1 flower on her, and I explained to you how much I like this plant, but it has some issues. So I am trying to make crosses and keep some of the beneficial traits of this plant and bring in some new traits that are going to be helpful for some of the problems that Oprah has. I have 1 successful cross of Oprah Winfrey. The plants are really vigorous, they're doing well, and this one is my 2nd cross. And what's happened on this flower, this cross was made not even 2 weeks ago, like a week and a half ago, and you can see how fast this flower has faded. And what I did with this, I got to look and make sure. So actually what I did is I crossed this onto this. So this is going to be a big, colorful, splash petal, fragrant orchid. And so I'm really excited. This was on my list of the crosses that I wanted to make. I do keep a list like that. And this cross looks like it made, but what you can see is just even a short time ago, you can see how the flower has completely faded. And what happens in the way that you can explain this is, well, it doesn't, once you make a cross and it's successful, it doesn't need the showy flower anymore to attract, you know, a bee or an insect or a hummingbird in for pollination. So the flowers fade pretty quickly. Here's another orchid that I have, and this is Mishima, and you can see right here, these are two flowers that are now crunchy. The flowers have faded so quickly, and this was a cross. Cat actually made these crosses, and these were made a month ago. So the seed capsules are starting to form. This is and I've used Mishima in crosses before, and she's a great parent. Again, a good vigorous plant, nice seed capsules that are forming, but you can see that the flowers, they aren't needed anymore, so the flowers really quickly dry out. And this is what happens. The last orchid that I want to show you is right here, and it's Maikai. Maikai has smaller blooms, and I'm using this in crosses for fun, and I cross this smaller flower with a large flower. So what I'm hoping to get is something intermediate between these plants, and this one, if it lasts, this is actually Maikai times Hawaiian prominence, which is a larger kind of a deep red red lip flower, beautiful flower, really striking. And so I want to see what happens when I make these crosses. But these, I'm not sure whether these are going to be successful, but what you can see is the flowers fade really quickly. The process where these flowers decline, and we've kind of justified it doesn't need the flower anymore, so the flowers fade really quickly, there's a name for that. And that in the plant world is called apoptosis. I'll spell it for you and I'll put it across my screen. Apoptosis. And so it's kind of weird, and I've heard it pronounced, I don't know how many different ways. I've heard it pronounced like it's spelled, apoptosis. I've heard it where they do the pop really quickly, so apoptosis. Most people that use the term, they just say apoptosis. So the POP is really quick. And this means apoptosis is derived from a Greek word that means falling off. It's a relatively new term in the plant world. It's mostly used in the animal world, but in the plant world, it's used to define a lot of times flowers that decline very quickly, either with or without pollination. Another term for that, and that has a very specific meaning. There's a closely related term that's actually three words, and that's programmed cell death, PCD. And so what apoptosis and PCD do is that means that the nutrient reserves that are in the flower petals or whatever organ are remobilized where they're used. So there's a very, it's not needed anymore. The showy flower petals aren't needed anymore, but more importantly, you get a remobilization of the food reserves where they are needed. So it's a perfectly natural process, and it occurs, and it's beneficial for the plants, and it's programmed. So people have studied this at the molecular level, at the gene expression level, and what you can see is the genes that are involved in breakdown of certain products and remobilization of those products to parts of the plant where it's needed are fairly well defined. So it's a genetic programming. That's where the programmed cell death comes from, where the cells are programmed to die and remobilize. It's used in it actually is important in other processes as well, but there's been a lot of work done from flower petals where you've got apoptosis or programmed cell death where it's a remobilization of the reserves to the plant and the plant parts and where it's needed. And I bring this up because I was at a meeting, an orchid meeting, just a regular membership meeting about a month ago. And what happened at the meeting is the speaker, who was a paid speaker, by the way, got up at the meeting and was talking about the Phalaenopsis leaves turning yellow. And he said, you want to clip those off right away because they're taking the reserves from the plant. And I just sat back in my chair and it says, oh my gosh. And this person really presented himself as a scientific authority. He said a number of things that were scientifically incorrect, that are invalid. But this is one of those things I just go, oh, I got to make a video on that. And I'll make a video on some other things. He described the root structure of the plants also, and really didn't know what he was talking about. But he presented himself as such an authority, and he was a paid speaker. So that anyway, people believed him, and and he's saying these things, and the people in the audience are going, "Oh, like this is big stuff." And anyway, back to the story. So he said, remove the yellowing leaves from your Phalaenopsis plants because they're sucking the energy from the plant. And the reality of this is the opposite is what is happening. And so as these leaves, and this is a Phalaenopsis, this is a lower leaf of a Phalaenopsis plant. Now, if the whole plant's yellowing, too bad, you're in trouble. If all the leaves on the plant are yellowing, if you have a fungal infection and that's blackening of certain parts of the leaf, and then in front of that it's turning yellow, well, then you need to cut off the black area well in front of where the yellow area is. But if you just have a yellowing older leaf, what's going on in there is the constituents of the leaf is being broken down and remobilized to the plant. So it's actually, believe it or not, it's feeding the plant. It's part of the natural process. It's part of apoptosis, or programmed cell death, when you're looking at remobilization of the reserves in certain parts of the plant to where it's needed. It's similar to what's going on when the leaves fall in deciduous trees in the north. So, those leaves, they did their job. They're remobilizing their reserves to the part of the plant that's needed. In this case, for dormancy. In the case of an orchid leaf, it's just contributing so you can get new leaf growing out and new flowers and new structures and everything like that. So anyway, I got sidetracked a little bit, but I just wanted to explain to you what happens with orchids and orchid flowers and yellowing orchid leaves, that if you can wait, if something is bothering you, if the plant is overall healthy and you've got a yellow leaf and you're bringing it to a show, well, fine, you can cut it off. But if you're just letting it sit, people are really anxious to cut off, the things that don't look nice on their orchid plants. But if you can be patient and wait, just in most cases, it's best to just let it go and don't cut off the things, because it's actually remobilization of the food to parts of the plants where it's needed most. Okay, so that's all I have for today. I hope you enjoyed my video. If you liked today's video and you want to keep on seeing me, it would help me out if you could click on like, share, and subscribe to my channel if you're not already a subscriber. All right, again, from a warm and sunny and windy Southwest Florida in mid-March on a beautiful day. Thanks for watching, and happy propagating.